Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
$10:35 Friday morning. A reminder, all of our guests today brought to you by Bird's Nest Properties. Give them a call, 604-260-9955, or visit birdsnestproperties.ca. Really appreciate our next guest, Joason Gregor, joining us from Sports 1440 in Edmonton after the Canucks 3-2 late victory last night. JT Miller with the late goal in game number 5. Game 6 tomorrow night, 5 o'clock our time. And Joason, thanks for doing this today. How are you? A little tired, I assume?
I'm great. Yeah, no, it's all good. We're used to late games here. It's just how it goes.
How were your Twitter mentions last night after the Canucks' late 3-2 victory over the Oilers?
Well, Oilers fans are obviously upset. You know what? That was Vancouver's best game of the series by far, I think, especially the final 40 minutes. And you know what? The difference in the games where Edmonton, like in game 3 when Edmonton dominated and had 45 shots, Vancouver didn't give them a real goal, whereas Edmonton gifted them the second goal last night. And you know that's the difference in the playoffs. Every moment matters, and some moments are definitely more damaging and harmful than other moments, right? And that was the case last night. Like, you know, Evan Bouchard in the first 4 games had played great, but that's just a play that can't happen. And obviously you saw the results with Di Giuseppe. And you know what? I expected Vancouver to come out. Rick Tocchet was livid with his team, you know, calling them passengers and questioning if guys even knew they're in the playoffs. And you know, then you throw in the emotional, just the human side of it for Di Giuseppe, who, you know what, everything I've heard, you know, he's a very popular guy in the room, and you know, real life and fatherhood and parenthood is a lot more important than a playoff game at the end of the day. And so I could see how it motivated that team, and they were better. They'd been the more physical team the entire series, but they kind of steamrolled the Oilers in the final 40 minutes.
So there's been a lot of talk about the minutes on guys, the big minutes on guys, McDavid, Draisaitl, etc. Is that catching up with them, or like last night, for instance, or are the Canucks just grinding them down, and they just seem to be a more physical team? Is that harming? Like, what is the reason for, like last night I saw you tweeting about how the Canucks seemed hungrier. They were just more desperate to win. Why were the Oilers lacking that in a game 5? Do you think they thought, well, we got 2 chances to win, we can, you know, we still got game 6, we still got game 7 if we need it?
Yeah, I don't think players ever think about that in the course of the game, but you know, momentum is a legit thing, and you know, sometimes you can't get it. Like, you know, did Vancouver not care in game 3 when the Oilers outshot them 45-18? I wouldn't think so, right? It just sometimes it happens, and it becomes a boulder and it rolling downhill, and you know, you can't get a hold of it. And you know what? Like the Oilers, outside of the Bouchard error in the second period, you know, when Vancouver was all over them, like think about it. If Bouchard doesn't make the error, you get out of that period and you're still up 2-1, and you're like, geez, you know, we just took shot after shot after shot, and we were able to hold firm, but they didn't. And then, you know, you look at the game-winning goal. It's an offensive zone face-off with 55 seconds left. You lose it, and then you have possession again in the neutral zone, and Zach Hyman just throws it away, and then Ekholm makes a bad trade and bad change, and then, you know, Bouchard goes to the wrong guy, and you know, and it still required a kind of a lucky bounce off a skate off the post, and JT Miller, who was the best player in the game, you know, gets rewarded for it. And you know, I think that was probably a valid reward if you think about who was the better team in the game, that they won. And that doesn't always happen, though. We saw that in game 3. So I don't really think Edmonton was thinking anything else. I just think, you know, sometimes you can't match the desperation, the emotion of the other team. You wish you could, but you don't. And like, you come into game 6, everybody knows in the first period that the Oilers are going to be the hungrier team, and Vancouver knows it, but sometimes you just can't match it. It's just how the playoffs work.
Joason, if you would have told me a power play clicking at 45% would go 0-for-5 last night, I wouldn't have believed you. I mean, this is one of the best power plays, I think, in the last few years in the NHL. What was not happening for them last night on the power play?
Well, it's actually it's the best power play historically.
Yeah.
You know, last night, Vancouver, to me, there was the prime example. Edmonton's power play, they probably don't get credit for how hard they work usually. Like, they're a very good puck retrieval team on the power play with offensive-minded guys. But last night, Vancouver pressured them And they didn't seem ready. Like they were, the reaction time was a little bit behind. Like Edmonton's best players yesterday, and usually you need your best players to win. They weren't their best players. And starts on the power play. Like they didn't have one good chance, guys. I think they had 3 shots, but none of them were really dangerous. And that, like normally their power play, you don't score every time. But Edmonton has the ability and skill, and everybody's seen it, in the playoffs in the last 5 regular seasons, that eventually they'll get chances. But yesterday, I thought that Vancouver just pressured and pressured and pressured. They won more puck battles, and which is kind of a calling card for the Oilers' power play. But yesterday, they just got outworked, and that to me was, it's funny. I know there's always so much talk about refs. Like I get so tired of people whining about the officials. Who gives a bleep about the refs? At the end of the day, the players impact the game, and you could argue that the penalties actually benefited Vancouver because they got more momentum because they kept dominating Edmonton's power play.
Jason, the goaltending, Stuart Skinner obviously not great to start the series, but what do you think about Pickard in his play in the last 2 games?
Well, not much more you can want from him. Like, I know some people didn't like the Di Giuseppe goal, but I'm like, I don't know why. Like, no goalie, you're standing there, you're kind of relaxed. You got a puck-moving defenseman with the puck with not a lot of pressure. You're thinking, okay, he's just going to get it out. He's not going to turn it over 5 feet in front of my net. And then, backhand shots, no one really knows where they're going. So I thought Pickard's been fine. He hasn't allowed a terrible goal, right? Like you look at the first 2 goals he allowed in game 4, both were off of legs going in. The Miller goal hits a skate, hits the post. I don't really have an issue with all. I think like it'll be a fascinating decision for me because Skinner's been your guy all year, but Pickard's been the more consistent goalie in the series. I would think you would stay with him, but I don't get a good sense yet on what they're going to do. But if it was me, I think you got to stay with Pickard because, Edmonton for the most part has outchanced in this series, and goaltending, I think we can all agree, has been their downfall in some of the earlier losses. Not last night. Last night, Vancouver was the best team, no question. But, they probably could have been up 3-1 before then if they would have just had decent goaltending. Not great, just decent. So in that regard, I think you got to go to Pickard.
Jason, a ton of people picked the Oilers. Let's be honest, right across the board. Everywhere I saw, the ESPN guys, 23 picked the Oilers. What's impressed you about Vancouver? Like they are, nobody saw this. I mean, no one saw them being up 3-2. What's impressed you about these guys?
Well, I think the biggest thing is Vancouver has been extremely physical. To me, the other thing is though, like last night was the first time they really pushed guys more offensively. The first 4 games, they sat back, and I don't think that's a recipe for success. We saw the Kings, it didn't work in round 1. And today's NHL, I don't think you can just sit back and not generate offense. I think it helped. Pettersson, had much more of a pulse in the game last night than you'd seen prior. Like TJ Miller's been great. Besser's been very good for them. But I thought, Garland too, really liked his energy in the series. But, what Vancouver has done defensively is they've been very committed to saying, okay, you know what? We're going to let Edmonton cycle around on the outside, but we're not going to give up an easy goal. And they really haven't. If you look at the, now Sheeloss might have light like a shot back, and I don't know which goal it was, but they actually won. That was in game 2 when they won anyway, or game 1 it was. Like there's 2 goals he let in he probably didn't like in game 1, right? Like the Ekholm one, he totally read the wrong way, but that wasn't like the players in front of him making a glaring error and just gifting Edmonton a goal, right? Like the Bouchard one. I don't blame the goalie when the guy has complete control of the puck and just gives it away. Yep. Vancouver hasn't done that. They haven't shot themselves in the foot, and I think that's hard to do when they've had to play in their own zone as often as they have, but they've been very committed to their system, and guys trust one another to say, okay, you know what, we'll allow them here. They're going to cycle around. And Edmonton, I don't believe, has done enough to disrupt Vancouver defensively. They don't have enough bodies in front. They're not willing to pay the price consistently. And if they don't, they're going to end up losing the series.
So big picture, Jason, there's a lot of time left. There's still potentially 2 games in this. It could go either way still. If this doesn't happen for the Oilers and the Canucks advance here, what are Oilers fans, 2 years ago, Western Conference Final, last year, second round, this year, potentially second round out. How are Oilers fans feeling about the window for a potential, at least cup final appearance, if not a cup? We heard all the talk, cup or bust, before the season started and all that. How are Oilers fans feeling about the window if this ends here for the Oilers?
Well, I think the not nearly as disappointed as the players will be. Let's make that clear. I think the Order players, they've been the best team in the league under Knobloch since he came in. They had the best record. They're top 5 in pretty much every meaningful stat. And then you get to the postseason, and you know what? You lose a series that, for lots of games, you were the better team early on. Now, we'll see. If Vancouver dominates Game 6, then they're full marks and they deserve to win. Like, something tells me it's going 7, and then it's kind of a coin flip, right? So I think Edmonton would be incredibly disappointed as a team. What significant moves can they make? They don't have a lot of cap space, right? They got a lot of dead cap space, in fact, from Jack Campbell and the Connor Brown bonus. So, there will be a lot of frustration for sure. And I think there'll be a lot of angst because whenever the playoffs ends, regardless of winning the cup, losing in the second round, win or lose in the third round, the conversation is going to be what's happening with Draisaitl's extension. And, if they don't get that done, well, then to me, that's, everything changes there, right? So that's probably going to be the big concern between now and then. It's never really been talked about the organization because they can't announce an extension till July 1st anyway. We both know they can negotiate behind closed doors, but they couldn't announce anything. And that would be even if they win, that's going to be the hot topic. But there'll be a lot more vitriol if the Orders lose, no question, because I think it'd be fair to say it would be a huge disappointment.
Outstanding stuff, Jason. We'll see what happens over the next few days here. Really appreciate you joining us today, and I'm sure we'll talk down the line.
Yeah, hey, enjoy it, guys. You know what? I think the teams needed this. They've never had a rivalry, really.
Absolutely.
This starts it. So hopefully it gets to Game 7 because Game 7 in any series, man, then who's the hero in Game 7 for you?
And who's the GOAT? Who's the hero?
Yeah.
Who's the GOAT?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.